Listen to this. Isaiah 53 says, "Who has believed our message? To whom has the Lord revealed his powerful arm? My servant grew up in the Lord's presence like a tender green shoot, like a root in dry ground. There was nothing beautiful or majestic about his appearance, nothing to attract us to him. He was despised and rejected, a man of sorrows, acquainted with deepest grief. We turned our backs on him and looked the other way. He was despised and we did not care. Yet it was our weakness he carried. It was our sorrows that weighed him down. And we thought his troubles were a punishment from God, a punishment for his own sins. But he was pierced for our rebellion, crushed for our sins. He was beaten so we could be whole. He was whipped so we could be healed. All of us, like sheep, have strayed away. We have left God's path to follow our own. Yet the Lord laid on him the sins of us all. He was oppressed and treated harshly, yet he never said a word. He was led like a lamb. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep is silent before the shearers. He did not open his mouth. What you talking about, baby? You feel this message? He did not open his mouth, unjustly condemned. He was led away. No one cared that he died without descendants, that his life was cut short in midstream. But he was struck down for the rebellion of my people. He was done no wrong and had never deceived anyone. Okay. But he was buried like a criminal. He was put in a rich man's grave, but it was the Lord's good plan to crush him and cause him grief. Yet when his life is made an offering for sin, can I do the message? That's God talking to you. I'm going to run it back a little bit. He was put in a rich man's grave, but it was the Lord's good plan to crush him and cause him grief. Yet when his life is made an offering for sin, he will have many descendants. He will enjoy a long life, and the Lord's good plan will prosper in his hands. When he sees all that is accomplished by his anguish, he will be satisfied. And because of his experience, my righteous servant will make it possible for many to be counted righteous. For he will bear all their sins. I will give him the honor of the victorious soldier, because he exposed himself to death. He was counted among the rebels. He was counted among the rebels. He bore the sins of many and interceded for rebels. He carried the weight. When others turned him around and turned him down and said that his appearance was unknown and his face was disfigured and he seemed hardly like a human, that he looked like that because of his own sins, that God hadn't punished him when he was really weak because he was carrying the weight of our sorrows that weighed him down, our sins, that he gave up his life to carry ours. He was exposed. He exposed himself and was placed in a rich man's grave. How rich is that? How good is that? But soon, he says, and because of his experience, my righteous servant will make it possible for many to be counted righteous, because many will give up certain things, make sacrifices to saying that this is for the Lord. My baby going to sleep. But as I read in verse 10, it says, "But it was the Lord's good plan to crush him and cause him grief, so that others can turn away from their wicked sins and give up an offering to be forgiven and to be led by what God has done or what he's doing in honor of giving up his life." Does that make sense? I hope I made it make sense as I'm understanding and reading through. And I know it wasn't the Lord's plan to just want his son to suffer. But as I read, how could it please the Father to bruise the Son? How could that be? The verse ends with the hope that the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hands. So God's pleasure was not in the suffering of the Son, but in the great success of what the Son will accomplish through his suffering. The Son will be an acceptable sacrifice for sin, putting an end to the sacrificial system. He would have spiritual offspring and would live beyond the grave along with his spiritual offspring. The sacrifice of Jesus gave God pleasure in a way none of the ancient. This is the pleasure of God that prospers in the hand of the Son, the justification of sinners accomplished by the Son bearing their sin. This is why the Father is pleased to bruise the Son. In Hebrews, it helps us to see that it was not only the Father who was pleased with the death of Christ, there was a sense of pleasure in it for Jesus too. Because of the joy awaiting him, he endured the cross, disregarding its shame. Now he is seated in the place of honor beside God's throne. Jesus understood the extent of the blessing that would come from his bruising. He could see the joy beyond the pain. He anticipated with pleasure the redemption for sinners as well as his own return to his Father's presence, where he will rule forever. So the way I look at this on a personal level as well as the spiritual, that you know that when someone do you wrong, and maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's your loved one, sometimes we get out there in that water with them, or sometimes you're like, nah, that's your weight, that's your burden, that's your wrong, and you gotta do that. I don't know about y'all, but I don't like to do tit for tat. I don't like to do wrong for wrong. I like to do for what's right, even when it's something that might feel wrong or I might still be done wrong. I'm going to look at the situation on all aspects. No, what did you do? What did they do? Because it's always more than one side to a story. So I say all this to say that Jesus did what he did for us, for me, for you, to be able to wash away our sins. So why not do right? Because guess what? When we do wrong, who is carrying that weight for us? He's that strong to carry that weight for us. And even when we feel like we strong and can carry somebody else's weight, somebody else is wrong. Are we really doing it? Are we saying, "Oh, you lace them shoes up, you lace them forces up, and you walk in them. That's your fight. That's your struggle. I'ma turn the other way. I'ma turn the other cheek." Like some people really do that. Some people really say that. But God is not saying anything. He said he never said a word. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter. And as a sheep, he is silent before the shearers. He did not open his mouth. Unjustly condemned, he was led away. He ain't turning his back on us. We see it every day. But there is a righteous way of doing things. And I pray that you find and seek him so that that way that you can ask him for forgiveness and walk in a clean slate and to be led by him and not them, or not you doing things your own way. As it said too, it says, all of us like sheep have strayed away. We have left God's path to follow our own, yet the Lord laid on him the sins of us all. When you get up, when you fall, who do that? Do you get the glory? Do you get all the praise and honor? Who you calling out? Think about it. I hope you ain't the one that feel like you higher than everybody and what they say bigger than the program, bigger than God. Because baby, it's only one God. And that's just why we reap what we sow. So make sure that even when you're a good seed and when you feel like you're a good person, make sure you're following and doing what God has called you to do. Because he made a lot of sacrifices for me and you.